Today we're here with Bev Mitelman, who I am personally excited to talk about. Bev, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you and your audience.
Well, before we begin to get into, because I know this is a very nuanced, very big topic, give us the context into what you do, and then our viewers are going to know why I am so excited.
So I work with attachment styles. I'm a relationship and attachment trauma practitioner. So my job is to work with individuals and couples to help them identify their attachment style and how that may or may not be impacting the relationships in their life with their romantic partners, their friends, their colleagues, family members, and also the relationship to themselves, and to help them work through that so they can move towards what we call secure attachment. And I'm sure we're going to get into that.
Of course we will. Thank you for pointing out, too, that this is so important for the relationship to ourselves, because even if we're not in an intimate partnership, it's easy to write this topic off, but it is so crucial to know. So anyone that's been listening to the podcast may or may not have collected that this is my weak spot. So there's so much I want to ask you, but I want to dive in with this first. What is it that people most misunderstand about attachment styles?
There's a couple of things. So first of all, what's so fascinating is that everyone has an attachment style. So everyone in the world has an attachment style, which means it's simply a way and a set of patterns and behaviors for how we form emotional bonds with other people. Right. And we have scientifically been able to identify 4 specific styles. Right now, rarely do people fit like right in one little box, but they sort of lean in a direction. And the way in which we form emotional bonds with other people is directly correlated to the type of childhood that we had. So what we saw, felt, experienced, learned as a child becomes a template for how it is we grow up and interact with the world, right? It becomes our lens.
Right.
Yeah. So, I hear some people sometimes conflating attachment styles with mental illness or personality disorders like narcissism. Not the same thing at all.
No, it's certainly not.
No.
If you have come into contact with a true narcissist diagnosably, you'll know.
Oh, you'll know. Yeah.
You'll know.
Well said. Yeah. And the other thing that I want to point out is that attachment styles are learned behavior, right? So with like anything else in our world, in our body, in our mind, what we learn, we can unlearn and relearn. So even if you have a set of patterns that's falling in one direction, let's say you're more on the avoidant side, you absolutely can learn to undo some of that thought pattern and some of that behavior and to operate in a much more secure fashion. And that is the work that I do. I help people move in that direction.
Curiously, what role does body and somatics play in the unlearning process?
Such a great question. You might be the first one who's ever asked me that.
I'm huge on somatics. It's a passion for me.
Yeah, it's great. So when we're going to talk about the 2 different broad categories, secure attachment and insecure attachment, there's a whole bunch of subsets of categories in insecure attachment, but what they have in common is that their nervous system is dysregulated, right? And so we see a whole bunch of patterns of behavior that people are trying to use to regulate their nervous system and find a sense of safety. So when we talk about doing the work towards secure attachment, somatics is very important when we're talking about nervous system regulation. So that's a great, great question.
So for someone that's curious, wants to explore what's my attachment style, they want to wade into these waters, what's the first thing you would suggest someone do?
So, awareness is always the first point. There's a little quiz on my website people can take. It's a free quiz at securelyloved.com. You answer a couple questions. It'll give you a general sense. But I'm also going to dive into what these categories are now. And oftentimes people go, oh, yeah, that sounds like me. right?
A
They can
little bit of realization, maybe some familiarity.
Yeah. Yeah, or sometimes people go, "Oh, that sounds like my boyfriend," or that, "That sounds like my ex," or whatever. So, I'll give sort of a broad view, and I think a lot of people will be able to self-identify where they might sit. So we have two broad categories. Originally, I said there were four, but we start with the two main categories where we have secure attachment and insecure attachment. Now, secure attachment is really the label that we give to individuals that feel comfortable being independent and in connection and closeness with others, right? These are generally people who grew up in homes where there was a fair degree of emotional attunement from their caregivers, predictability, warmth, caring. We're never talking about perfect parenting, right? That doesn't exist, but the child felt safe. They felt safe to express themselves. They felt safe that the caregiver would respond in a calm and respectful way. And so they learned about their emotions and they learned about being authentic. And they grew up understanding that, life is all about connections. Right? They felt
Yes.
safe in that. And so these are the individuals that go on to often seek out long-term partnerships. They do very well in long-term partnerships. They're pretty good with boundaries. They understand, respectful communication. Emotionally, they're quite stable. Like these are not the folks who are like volatile. So, in North America, we talk about it's hard to get an exact number, but it's probably in between 40 and 50% of the population is secure.
Wow.
Yeah. So, which
That's a bigger number than I suspected.
that's what people always say. So it's hard to get because this is self-reported, right? So it's hard to get the number, but in between 40 and 50% is where the estimate lies today. So what does that mean? That means that the other, 50 to 60%, the bigger cohort of people, when they grow up into adults, have formed an insecure attachment style. So they have an insecure way of forming emotional bonds with other people. And within that insecure realm, there's subcategories. So the first subcategory is the anxious preoccupied or the anxious attacher. And along the spectrum, because it's like a continuum, right? Along the spectrum on the other end is the avoidant attacher or the dismissive avoidant. And then there is a cohort, a smaller group of people who actually have both avoidance and anxious. And we call those, they are known as disorganized attachers because they have like a little bit of both, or fearful avoidance. There's two different names. So why do we form these? Well, again, it has to do with the type of caregiving that we received when we were younger. So typically someone who is anxious, preoccupied would have experienced very unpredictable love when they were younger. These are the folks that often get sort of called out on social media and in memes as being needy in relationships, the chasers, right? They're the ones who are constantly seeking closeness from their partners because they don't have the ability to self-soothe. They can be quite emotionally volatile. And they're heavily reliant on their partners and their friends to help them soothe their nervous system. Right. So they would have experienced as a child a parent who was emotionally unavailable or someone, maybe a parent who was alcoholic, unpredictable. They would have gotten a little bit of love, but not consistently. And so they get trapped in this roller coaster of emotions of like chasing after love that's a lot of times not available. So I'll pause here and say, do you know anyone in your circle of friends who chases after unavailable partners?
Of course.
Right. And it's
Yes.
interesting, right? Because we always turn around and we go, but it's obvious this person can't give you what it is that you need and desire and want. Why are you chasing after them? And the person most often doesn't have a clear explanation. because the patterns that I'm describing are in our subconscious mind. So they guide
Yes.
our behavior, but not at a conscious level. So if you ask someone, why are you wasting your time running after this guy who's clearly emotionally unavailable, giving you breadcrumbs, they're likely not going to understand what's driving their behavior.
Right. It just feels necessary.
They're just like, I'm just so attracted to him. I don't, there's something about him. Well, I'll tell you what's about him. Like, it's a really simple answer. The dynamic is recreating what you know to be familiar from your childhood, where you were chasing after the love of your caregiver, right? Might have been your father, might have been your mother. They're there one minute, the next minute they're not. And you develop this sense of, if I just try harder, I can make them love me.
Mhm.
And this cohort of people start at a very young age to develop people pleasing tendencies, right? And they give away from themselves because they're so focused on pleasing the other person, all under the guise of, I'll be perfect, don't leave me. Right. And so they're over givers, and they're also over feelers. They tend to feel their emotions in a really, really heightened sense. Lots of volatility in that group.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sounds like some of your friends. We all have friends like this in our peer groups.
Oh, I'll just call myself out. I would lean towards that. I'm not too bold to say it.
It's okay. Like, again, these are just patterns that we absorbed from our childhood. But again, I want to remind you that once you become aware of this and that you're chasing after love because that's what's familiar to you, and you realize, like, the interesting thing is once you start to heal, the people that you would have once found extremely attractive, they're no longer attractive to you.
I'll tell you something that will make you laugh. One of my closest friends is a professional somatic practitioner,
Oh
and she
yeah.
calls me the professional safety recruiter because I like to recruit in a friendship sense, not in a romantic sense. I don't do that as much romantically, actually, but in a friendship sense, she likes to call me the safety recruiter. I like to know that people are on my side. I like to
Mhm.
recruit their support, their love, and their safety. So she always laughs and she'll say, "You're recruiting again."
So do you feel best when you're surrounded by lots of people?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if something happens, something emotional happened, I don't know, you get a phone call from someone that really upsets you, is your tendency to sort of take a walk and think about it, or to pick up the phone and call multiple friends and air it out over the course of the next 6
My
hours?
tendency is always to pick up the phone and call a bunch of people.
Yeah. So I knew what you were going to say. So human behavior is so fascinating because it's predictive, right? Like, these are predictive behaviors that people have based on what they've learned. And so if I was working with you, I would work on specifically teaching skills so that you could learn how to rely more on yourself, on self-soothing, because there is a reason that you reach out to that many people to sort of help you process, because essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to downgrade or regulate your nervous system, which has been jolted by that event.
Absolutely. That absolutely describes me.
Yeah, yeah, it's very, very common. Like 25% of the population has this particular attachment style, super common.
So it's one of the more common ones. Let's dive into the other two.
Okay. So on the other end of the scale, also about 25% of the population has this, is the avoidant. So we have the anxious and we have the avoidant. And as luck would have it, it's not really luck, but they often find each other in romantic relationships. And this is where we get the push-pull thing. So the avoidant typically grew up in a home where there was emotional neglect, or they were really overburdened, let's say, by a mother that was very controlling or whatnot. They learned that emotional closeness, was not safe. And so they developed a lens of, I'm safest when I'm alone. I can trust myself. I don't really trust others. And so behaviorally, they really thrive being hyper independent. It's quite difficult for them to trust others and to move into long-term relationships. This cohort of people will often favor short-term casual relationships because vulnerability, intimacy is very scary for them. It makes them feel unsafe. Right. Whereas the person who's anxious really craves and desires that closeness. For the avoidant, that closeness actually makes them feel unsafe. And so they push it away. Right. So these two end up dating very often. And that's why we have so many of these memes on the internet that talk about, the one that's chasing and the one that's running away. And this is a true dynamic that happens all the time. If a couple is in conflict, usually there's one partner that's like, we need to talk about it now. I can't go to sleep upset. We need to they absolutely have to resolve it to be able to calm down. And the other partner's like, I need a day to myself. I just need to think about things. I need to process. And we see this very often. But I will point out actually that we often see on the internet these tropes and these memes of the girl being anxious and the guy being avoidant, which of course can happen. But attachment styles are not gendered.
Yes.
Which means that we have plenty of women who fall into the category of avoidant and plenty of men who fall into the category of anxious. And so I myself grew up far more avoidant. And so the behaviors that I'm describing, I've lived through, and I'm dating someone now who is much more on the anxious scale.
How fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh, and the people that are sort of the mix.
Yeah, the people who are sort of the mix, the fearful avoidant or the disorganized, these people came out of homes often where there was just a high degree of chaos. There was no stability to the home, and oftentimes there was abuse as well. And so these children developed a template in their mind whereby they really very much wanted the closeness, like the anxious attacher, but they feared it because that also came with pain. And so in a lot of cases, for example, they were really yearning for the love of a parent, but the parent was also harming them. Right? So the child becomes confused in their psyche, disorganized with how to create emotional bonds with people because they desire the closeness, as all people do. We all want to form connections, but they're deeply afraid of it because in their mind that comes with pain.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And none of us subscribe to wanting to put ourselves through pain. So it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it really does. And that particular group is the fearful avoidance. They're the least understood. They carry around deep wounds of betrayal. And they're often, it's an interesting group because oftentimes they've developed a set of skills that are very, very helpful for them because they're trying to keep themselves safe. So, you'll find that fearful avoidants, for example, are hypervigilant. So if you've ever been around someone who's hypervigilant, walks into the room and scans the room right away, is trying to feel everyone's emotionality, and it's because they're trying to pick up on where's the danger. Right? Can I trust the group of people that I'm with? And because they've experienced such high degrees of betrayal that they don't trust at all. Really difficult to sort of penetrate that shell. They're good people. That's the thing is that they've just been traumatized in childhood, right? So it's more difficult to form a healthy relationship with them if they're unaware of their patterning.
And the key word that you're using is aware, because I think it's so important to know awareness, to your point, is the first step of really starting to make some of these changes that are going to move you into having more satisfying, fulfilling partnerships.
Yes. Yeah. And all of this really starts from first really understanding yourself. So, what are the wounds that you're carrying? Right? What are your triggers? What are the things that you really need to feel content and satiated? Like, what are your personality needs? What's really important to you in relationships? Um, you know, with the man that I'm dating now, I remember on one of our first dates, I sat down with him and I said, "What's really important to me is trust, loyalty, and honesty. So I can give that to you, but I need that back in spades, which means that if I get a sense that you're being dishonest with me, we're done." Like,
That's beautiful to have that degree of self awareness that we should all be
mhm.
working towards.
Yeah. And that's where I think that that's part of the work that we do, because once you understand your own mind and what you need to feel safe, then you learn how to communicate that to someone else clearly, right? We stop expecting people to read our minds, right? And you can sort of set these parameters for a relationship. When we talk about a healthy relationship, we talk about, okay, tell me what you need, I'm going to tell you what I need. And for some people that's just so hard because they really don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, for any listener, because this is my signature question, I'm going to adapt it a little for you.
Okay, sure.
So, I want to keep your advice within this realm. So, if you were going to give 3 pieces of advice
Mm,
to university age students about attachment style, what are those 3 pieces of advice?
okay, let me think about this for a moment, okay?
I know it's a good, juicy question,
Yeah,
isn't
it
it?
really is. Hold on. And I'm taking notes because it's a good a good question deserves a good response.
Well, thank you. And I
Mhm.
think too, I'm just so excited on the personal front and the professional front to have you. It's been a pleasure. And I know we discussed before we started, we're going to have you back for a deeper dive. So today is just our overview, listeners. Don't worry, she'll be back.
Okay. I think I have a pretty good answer. So what's interesting about the younger folk when they start dating, right? So we're talking about like students who are like 20 to 25 in that age group.
Absolutely.
Yeah, oftentimes they are very unaware of how their childhood has impacted them, mostly because they can still very much be integrated to their home of origin. So when you get older, see, I'm almost 50. So I've been out of my home of origin for 30 years. So when you get distance and you get a little older and you have some more life experiences, it's easier to build perspective and to see things, from a different lens. But someone, for example, who's attending university and still living at home and still, in that milieu, it might be a little bit more challenging, but all that more important. Okay, so I do think number one, the most important thing to do is to learn about yourself. So your subconscious mind is absolutely driving the show here. Your subconscious mind, the patterns, like a computer program. You've been programmed over those 20 years, and now your thought patterns, your emotions, and your behavior is being guided by a set of rules that you've inherited from other people. We all like to think we have free agency. You're running on autopilot through all of these sort of rules that you've learned, right? Rules of engagement. So learn about yourself. Why do you do certain things? Why do you enjoy being around people all the time or not enjoy being around people? Why are there certain situations that make you anxious and yet other situations you really desire and crave? What really feeds your soul? Right? Where are your passions? And the university time period is the best time to explore all of this, right?
It
Yeah.
is.
On so many levels, academically and with friends and sexually. And like, it's your time to explore and find yourself. So, you know, do a dive into your mind as well, trying to understand what are my thought patterns. And that's simple as right before you make a decision, ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? Bring your thoughts to your conscious awareness. I'm about to say no to go to a party, but I really do want to go. So why am I going to say no? What am I thinking? Oh, okay, I'm thinking that the group isn't going to like me, so that's why I'm not going. This is the stuff that you have to uncover, the reasonings, right?
Yes.
Okay, so learn about yourself. Then I would say take the steps either through reading or watching videos or working with a counselor to rewire some of this conditioning that is no longer serving you. So you might still be repeating behaviors from your childhood that you once needed in order to feel safe and protect yourself that you no longer need, but you're still on autopilot and you're repeating these things. So call yourself out, be honest with yourself, and do the work and we can do this. We can reprogram, these patterns in our minds so that you start adjusting your behavior into a way that's healthier and more conducive to healthy relationships with yourself and with others. And the third thing is, I think the most important is I would really advise and highly encourage people to find their authenticity, and to live your authenticity. Too many times we are wearing masks in society, right? We are playing a role that we think others want us to play. Half the university students will probably say they don't even want to be studying what they're studying, but their parents wanted them to do it. And so they're doing it to please other people, right? People pleasing. We talked about this. Find your authenticity. Figure out what actually makes me happy, what actually sparks me. And through all different areas of life, right? So that might be your career, it might be the types of friends that you want to surround yourself with, it might be the type of romantic partner you want, or the type of relationship that you may or may not want. Because, in today's day and age, you can define your relationship in so many different ways, right? It's
Yes.
so find truly your authenticity and what makes you happy. And I promise you, when you're authentic, you will naturally find your tribe, the people
Mm.
who naturally vibe with you, who have the same alignment. That will be the biggest gift, to find your people.
Oh my goodness. I love all three of those. I can't pick a favorite though, because they're all so vitally important. If I could encourage the listeners to do anything, it would probably be to listen to Bev, because
Oh,
that was extraordinary. And you have not disappointed even whatsoever. You have exceeded my expectations by a million, and I cannot wait to have you back. But if somebody wants to learn, they want to follow your social media and engage with your content, where do they go?
Oh, thank you for that. So our website, securelyloved.com, we're actually a group of practitioners. So it's me and a group of practitioners who are working specifically with attachment trauma. So you can take the free quiz on our website if you want to get a sense of where you fall on that scale. You could also book a free 20-minute consult with me or with any of the practitioners at Securely Loved. We are also on social media. My two sons, who are in university at this point in time, they've helped me learn social media, and so we are on Instagram at securely_loved. I'm just building a new YouTube channel too, because I'm trying to get some of this information out there. So on YouTube, we're at Securely Loved. Yeah, and I would love to interact with people. If you have questions or comments, either through the website or YouTube or Instagram, I answer everything that comes my way.
Well, I want to say a huge thank you for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your expertise, for being so open about a topic that can be nuanced and it can be difficult and filled with misinformation and taboo. So thank you so much for the demystification. We are so grateful.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you so much to everyone for joining us on another episode of the Campus Chronicles podcast. So if today's episode gave you life, perspective, or just a much needed moment to breathe in a busy world, I don't want you to keep it to yourself. Share it, tag us, please send it to a friend who needs to hear it. And if you're not on our newsletter yet, what are you doing? Go to campuschroniclespod.com and join the crew. We have all the behind the scenes things, unfiltered thoughts from me and the team, bonus resources, and insider only invites to events, giveaways, and things that we really don't post anywhere else. I promise I'm not going to spam you. It's just the good stuff straight to your inbox. Being in university is wild enough. You don't need to miss out on what matters. Sign up now and let's make this next semester the one that you stop surviving and start thriving. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, keep writing your own chapter. This is Campus Chronicles.